Hey, and welcome back to the Stadium tier list. Of course, in this video we're finally going to cover the supports. I know I left it a bit late, but before we jump into it, I just quickly have to let you know, this one section of the video where I rank the first character, Anna, is recorded way more recently than all the other sections. That probably shouldn't affect much, but it's just because apparently I accidentally deleted my Anna footage when deleting my footage for the DPS section that I already uploaded. So I guess I've got to re-record this, and unfortunately, it's been a couple weeks since I recorded this now, so I'm a little bit out of sorts, but hopefully I think I remember the major points I want to cover with Anna. Also, I don't know why, but somehow I got the support order jumbled in this video, so this is the correct order here, but the ranking is going to be slightly out of order, my bad. Either way, Anna is still first, and I'm going to be honest with you, I have been absolutely torn between putting Anna at a high C or a low B. And for the sake of not being confusing, I'm going to put her at a low B because that's what I did in the original footage that I lost. However, I'm not going to lie, even when I recorded that footage, I did remember saying, honestly, I feel like I could change my mind on a whim. Like, next week you could ask me and I'd put her back at C. And funnily enough, yeah, now if you ask me, I'd probably put her at C, but just for the sake of not having a teleporting about the list, I'll put her at the bottom of B. Which, by the way, is what I consider to be the worst support in the game, which just tells you how strong support is. Despite being an Anna main, technically, I mean, again, I still prefer to say I'm a jack of all trades, because I got a good amount of playtime in everyone, but, you know, if you're talking my most played character, it is still Anna. But yeah, even as an Anna main, I don't really think Anna is it in Stadium. I think that Anna is very poorly equipped for Stadium, unfortunately. I think it comes down to a few factors. Big picture-wise, if you want to talk the less specific but more broadly applicable issues in multiple situations, I think that Anna is just a character that is poorly designed for the Stadium game mode versus the normal game. Like I say, the characters that translate well to Stadium are the characters that already have a bunch of mobility and or utility, and all they really needed to give them that extra boost was a bit more pure stats, because that's what Stadium provides in spades. Unfortunately, Anna doesn't really fit that description neatly. First of all, in that she is one of the least mobile supports in the entire game. In fact, if you count Zen's float perk in the base game, I suppose Anna is technically the least mobile support in the entire game. So she's definitely not winning the mobility contest, and that's already pretty bad for her, considering that mobility is like the most important and powerful thing you can have on your base kit in Stadium. As well as that, in terms of her pure damage and healing numbers, her damage is already pretty good, and her healing is already some of the best single target healing in the entire game. Which I know that should be a good thing for her, but considering the main upside of being able to amp your heals in Stadium is to be able to push it even further, but you're already kind of pushing it far enough with Anna, you kind of get less returns out of buffing your heals. Like, don't get me wrong, you can get some stupidly high healing output on Anna, but it just very quickly hits a point where, in Stadium, it's just overkill. No one actually needs that much healing. You would rather invest your resources in something better. Now, you could argue that I said earlier that utility is the other big thing other than mobility that you want to have in your base kit going into Stadium. And to be fair, Anna has tons of utility. Having both heal amp, anti-heal, and then also having sleep dart all in one kit, on top of technically even her ultimate nano boost being pretty good for utility, that would convince you that surely she has to be good in that department. And she is in the base game. In the base game, Anna's utility is through the roof. But honestly, in Stadium, I feel like a lot of her utility falls off a cliff. A sleep dart in the base game is way more likely to connect to a kill because you can burst kill people faster. The fact that people are tankier in Stadium means that a lot of the time people do survive getting slept. Same goes for anti-heal. Anti-healing a tank just doesn't do as much because it doesn't last any longer than it already did before, and yet in that same time window, you've got to do so much more damage to actually kill a tank when you anti them. As a result, they just don't really die even when you do anti them very often in Stadium. Similarly, the heal boost might be nice, but I mean, again, your healing's already through the roof, you don't really need it. Really, the only utility that Anna has that I think remains super relevant in Stadium is Nano Boost, and considering that's an ultimate you can't use all too often, and considering that a lot of other previously weaker ultimates have caught up to the strength of Nano Boost thanks to all the Stadium powers that exist in the game, man, Anna really doesn't have a lot going for her. A lot of the best traits that she has in the base game have kind of been robbed from her in Stadium. And to make matters worse, I think Anna has a severe build diversity problem. there isn't really a lot of different ways you can physically play Ana builds. And I'm going to be real with you, some of them just suck. In particular, I think Biotic Nade Ana is just, like, garbage. And not to mention, while there are good Sleep Dart synergies, and Sleep Dart Ana as a whole package isn't bad, Ana's Sleep Dart package is only really good as a whole because of a few select powers and items that are so good they carry the package, but most of the aspects of the package are actually pretty bad in my opinion. To me, the only two items that are particularly good with Sleep Dart are Tranquilizer and Comfy Cloud. And ironically enough, they both have anti-synergy. I would say that you want to take one of these, and you should never take both. Other than that, Sleep Dart dealing damage is fine, but unimpressive. Sleep Dart being able to heal people does do a lot of healing, but again, Ana has, if anything, too much healing already. It's not really helping her where she's weak. Not to mention, while Dreamy does do a lot of healing with your Sleep Dart, it also provides you no ultimate charge or stadium cash for all the healing you do with it, which is awful. Overall, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this has left only two ways you can really play Ana if you're playing to win, and neither of them are ideal. First up is probably the most popular one, the Sleep Dart build, in which Tranquilizer is an auto-take. For those of you who are out of the loop, Tranquilizer is an expensive item, 11,000 if I remember correctly, however it is well worth it, because not only does it make sleep last 20% longer, but that's not even really the part you care about. What you care about is it makes your Sleep Dart travel at double speed, and it increases the hitbox size of it to 6 times its usual size. The most funny part is that visually the Sleep Dart is still the size of a net, but in reality the hitbox of the Sleep Dart is now the size of a bus. You basically physically cannot miss your Sleep Dart when you have this item. You really should have basically 100% accuracy every game, unless you're like really beyond help. And you might be thinking, okay, sure, it's a good item, but is it maybe a crutch? Well, that's actually what I thought about it at first, is that it felt good to use, but I actually tried to avoid using it, because as good as it felt, I thought, no, it's a crutch, I shouldn't use it. I already am pretty good at landing Sleep Darts as it is, I'm pretty good with my Sleep Darts on Ana. I probably shouldn't rely on this, I should probably keep my skills sharp, I probably shouldn't waste 11,000 credits on just making something I can already do pretty good easier. However, I eventually realized that no, actually it's well worth it to take Tranquilizer even if you're already good with your Sleep Darts. Not just because it will make you more consistent, but more importantly, because having Tranquilizer allows you to go for the stupidest sleeps in the world that no sane person should ever land in a just world. There was one time I was dealing with a Freya as Ana, who we were fighting each other on Samoa Volcano, and I'm peeking out of one of those windows in our sort of spawn area, and she's peeking out of hers on the other side of the map. So we're literally on opposite sides of the map right now, and she jumps out the window and she starts dashing left and right, and she's shooting bolts everywhere, and I try and fling this Sleep Dart from what must be at this point over 50 meters away, and I shoot it into the sky, and I actually catch her midair and she falls off the map. And again, that never happens. It doesn't matter how good I am at landing my sleeps, I'm never hitting that without Tranquilizer. There's just too much the Freya can do to mix up her movement. I'm just never going to hit it without getting blind lucky without Tranquilizer. But having Tranquilizer makes the hitbox so big and the travel time so fast that even from that distance, there's nothing the Freya can do. If I hit a good shot, I'm going to catch her, because any mix-ups that she could do to screw up my shot aren't going to be large enough to be able to dodge the massive hitbox with the halved travel time. So I found that Tranquilizer actually is really good and not a crutch because of the fact that even if you are already good on your sleeps, it just enables you to go for the stupidest sleeps ever that even the best Anas would never be able to land. So yeah, Tranquilizer is very good, but the rest of the package is a bit underwhelming, especially because if you're taking Sleep Dart Ana, you're probably investing in AP, and that kind of puts you in a bad box, because I'm going to be real with you, I think AP Ana has awful tools. I think for the most part there is nothing really impressive there. I mean, dealing damage with Sleep Dart is fine, but it's just not that impressive. Not to mention, I feel like when you take the Sleep Dart Ana build, you don't get a lot of opportunities to be particularly proactive. A lot of the times you are just sitting there and waiting for things to come to you, and hoping that the enemies make mistakes. And don't get me wrong, you are amazing at punishing mistakes as Sleep Dart Ana, but that's all you can do. Punish mistakes. And if punishing a mistake isn't how you win the game, if you've got to do something yourself to win the game, you don't get a lot of control of the game and ability to actually be proactive and win losing games on Ana, on the Sleep Dart build, which makes it kind of tough. Worse still is while there is an alternative, which is perhaps better, it's still got its own issues. that being unscoped weapon power Ana, which I think might be the best way to play Ana. It certainly seems to be very popular, but even then, I sound uncertain because no matter how many times I play this build, I never seem to be able to find any way to make it well balanced. What I mean is that when I play unscoped weapon power Ana, while I have had games where I have literally 1v5'd the entire lobby with the power of this build, I think when you are allowed to go off on unscoped Ana, it is one of the most oppressive builds in the game. I also find that it's very easy for enemies to just invest resources into shutting you down that are well worth it, and then you can't even play the game. I think that you get that feast or famine thing some of the DPS generally get in the game. When you play unscoped Ana, you start to feel like, okay, if people just don't look at me and give me a second to run in there, I can probably literally team wipe. But, like, if anyone looks at me a little funny, I will fall over and die. I have found that basically every time I try and play unscoped Ana, one of two things happens. Either I get all the lethality in the world and the potential to team kill easily, but then I can't survive longer than 5 seconds in the fight if anyone actually looks at me. Or the complete opposite happens. I think, well, don't want that to happen again, gonna have to invest in survivability and just a little bit of weapon power. But then my lethality doesn't really scale well into the late game, and so while now I can survive in fights and do damage, I'm not actually getting kills with this damage and just sort of poking them, and I no longer really feel like I'm having this massive impact. It's always possible that there is a way to balance it that I just haven't found yet, but I don't know, man. I've played this character a lot. I have a lot of experience on them. I've tried a lot of build versions and iterations of the build. I've tried so many different combos. Nothing seems to strike the balance. It's always too much survivability, not enough lethality, or too much lethality, not enough survivability. I've never had a single game on Weapon Power Ana that feels like it strikes the balance. What I will say though is I do think Dash Boots is an auto-take in any kind of unscoped Ana build, not only because it's just generally a really strong item, but because the Hanzo lunge that it gives you also counts as an ability usage for any kind of item that gives you a boost on ability usage. Every time I play the build, I combine this with the item that grants plus 20% attack speed and a 10% move speed boost whenever you use an ability, because that means you can basically just have Lucio speed aura at all times when playing Ana, while also getting a significant DPS boost. That being said, from there is where you can get a bit more creative. Maybe, despite the fact this is unscoped Ana, you actually go ability power and take Mark of the Kitsune, so that you get a burst of damage every single time you shoot another shot after using a dash. Maybe you take 3-tap Tommy Gun instead and start doing percentage-based damage to enemies every time you use an ability. Or maybe you need some more survivability and you take Lumerico Fusion Drive, again, unfortunately an ability power item when AP isn't great on Ana, but the upside of it is that it grants 50 armor, and every time you use an ability, it regenerates that 50 armor. So you can essentially be generating 12.5 armor a second just for existing on Ana, for literally zero resources other than the money you spent to get the item. Unfortunately, I did find out the hard way that cooldown reductions do not apply to this dash ability though, which is very inconsistent because cooldown reductions do apply to things like Sigma's Levitate Punch, or other examples of new abilities you can get from the items shop or the powers menu in the Armory and Stadium. The game is very inconsistent when it comes to this. They do the same thing with Zen's Snap Kick, you can't reduce the cooldown of that either. In summary, I think the biggest problem with Ana is that no matter which way you play her, it always feels like she ends up in one of two camps. Either that she can completely take over the game, but only if no one bothers to stop her, when it's pretty easy to stop you usually if the enemies actually try or actually know what it is they're supposed to do to shut you down. Or you're in the camp of you're not easy to shut down, but also you're not really doing anything. Well, that's harsh. You are doing things, you're healing people, you're not dying, you're taking attention, but you're not doing something that would actually carry a losing game. You're just doing things that make your teammates' jobs a little easier, but if they're just dropping the ball, it probably won't make the difference. So yeah, unfortunately, Ana has got to be the worst support in Stadium, in my opinion. As I say, right now I'm kind of more feeling putting her in C, but since I put her at the bottom of B at the time I recorded this, I'm just going to make this less complicated and keep her there. Okay, next up is Kiriko, and there's really no nice way to say this, I'm sorry, but like, I can't avoid the elephant in the room. I just think everyone who doesn't understand that Kiriko is the most f***ing broken character in Stadium, and it's not even close, actually just has no idea what they're doing on the character. I really hate to be that smug. I really hate to be that, like, you know, full of myself. But I don't even think I'm a good Kiri. Well, kind of. I think I know what you're supposed to do on Kiri, and knowing what you're supposed to do shouldn't be that hard. The hard part should be doing it, and I don't think I'm particularly good at doing it. I just think I understand what you need to do on Kiri. And yet, I guess that's all you need to know, because, like, consistently, both in the base game and in Stadium, I enjoy a higher win rate on Kiri than I do on most of my actual mains, despite the fact I don't even play her much. Honestly, if I was a constant sweat that only cared about winning, I probably would main Kiri, because I still think Kiri is one of the most stupidly overpowered characters ever added to Overwatch, and I don't think that's ever changed. Honestly, I'll admit, I completely backed off at this point and said maybe she's OP, maybe she's not before, because I was just so baffled at the fact that people came off of the idea that Kiri is this broken, that people thought, oh, actually, Kiri's not that bad, and besides, she takes lots of skill, and, like, honestly, she's not as strong as you think. No, that's garbage. Kiri is already stupid in the base game, but this is just a base game. Then it gets to Stadium, and my god, you need to understand, I do not have that many hours in Kiriko compared to other supports. And my Stadium win rate with Kiriko currently is 76%. I am not a good Kiriko, unless all you need to be a good Kiriko is to literally just understand what your job is, regardless of whether you do it particularly well or not. I am not the best Kiriko, and yet I literally solo carry lobbies on this character, because this character is stupid. They are just stupidly overtuned, and it's not even close. I feel like Kiri has been consistently, criminally underrated because of two major factors. One of them is something that's already a factor in the base game. That being, I'm going to be real with you, I unironically think people who are Kiri players with a capital K, they actually basically just play Kiri and almost no one else, are ironically some of the worst Kiriko players out there, because while they get good at the doing it part, they get really bad at understanding what it is they're actually supposed to be doing. The amount of times I'll see someone who, to be frank, to be clear, I'm not about to be completely conceited. Absolutely could probably hit more kunais than I could. Absolutely, on an objective level, has more skill on Kiriko than I do, and yet would lose more on Kiriko than I would, because they literally just choose to do stupid things on Kiriko. They choose to do nothing but heal or nothing but DPS and never get a nice equilibrium. They choose to flank at the worst possible timings as if they have no awareness of their surroundings. They choose to waste Suzu on themselves when they don't even need to, and then shrug and wonder why their tank is dead when they don't have Suzu for them. And then somehow they find ways to constantly put Kitsune rushes into walls. Like, this one in particular, like, what's wrong with Kiriko players? Why do you keep Kitsuneing into walls? This should not be a common issue. It's so easy to just not Kitsune into a wall. Not to mention, you know I've mentioned before, because it's a big pet peeve of mine, that a lot of people that are quote-unquote good at Kiri actually can't land a healing Ofuda to save their lives, because they only try to land kunais. They don't try when they're trying to throw healing Ofudas. And because they don't even try to aim, they actually miss more healing Ofudas than kunais, even though the healing Ofudas are way easier to land. So that's already the first part of the rant, but here comes the second part, the stadium-specific part. People are sleeping on Kiriko like crazy, because they can't think of any other build to play than the clone build. And in case you didn't know, the Kiriko clone build used to be the best way to play Kiriko, because of the fact that the clone had literal perfect aimbot, which was a little bit ridiculous, and you could just drop a clone on someone whenever you wanted and surprise teleport behind them and dink dink dead. So of course, clones got severely nerfed, and now clone build is not the way to play Kiri. Does that stop anyone? No, every Kiriko and them grandmother is playing clone builds still to this day, even after it's been absolutely kneecapped by nerfs to the point where I'd say it's a throw pick. Now, in fairness, you might ask, well, what is there left to do on Kiri? I mean, I guess there's AP Kiri, which isn't as bad a build as it sounds. It's actually pretty good, mostly because while it is weird going on AP for Kiri, some of the AP items are actually ridiculously powerful, especially Donut Delivery, the one that does a 120 AoE heal on teleport and provides a 10% cooldown reduction. That is a really good stat, bundled with a really high healing output benefit. But still, AP Kiri isn't the reason Kiri is at the top, because AP Kiri is a safe and easy way to play Kiri where you'll do your job, but it's not really one that lets you carry. The reason Kiri is at S+, is because I'm going to be real with you. You don't even have to actually make a really coherent build with Kiri. Literally just take weapon power. I wish it wasn't that boring, but it is. I'm telling you, you just take weapon power, take Tuzu. It doesn't even have synergy, by the way, but just take Tuzu because it's a broken power, and then take exploding kunais. You will start two-tapping tanks. as a character that can grant them seconds worth of complete intangibility and cleanse twice in a row, and then teleport through 5 sets of walls across the map whenever they want. You now not only have 2, which is already ridiculous, but 3 instant invincibility, cleanse, get out of jail free cards on cooldowns that rapidly regenerate, on a character that can 2-tap basically the entire cast, including tanks, if you land headshots, on a character who also has an enormous healing output because all that weapon power also buffs your healing, not just your kunais, on a character that can also deal with burst damage better than any other character in the game, when you already have the best ultimate in the entire game, Kitsune Rush. Oh my god, man. How is this character allowed to exist? Do you remember when characters were supposed to have weaknesses? Because I don't. Did I mention you have the smallest hitbox in the game as well? Do I even bother to mention wall climbing at this point? Like, it's practically irrelevant. Hell, you got the double jump perk anyway. You have a character with unpredictable movement, especially when you take the double jump item, that can 2-tap anyone in the game, that can pocket better than most supports in this mode, that can grant invincibility on command in 2 different ways, and one of them has 2 charges now, and has the strongest ultimate in the entire goddamn game. It just makes me think, how are some of these people losing on Kiriko? Like, I don't even have to turn my brain on, and, like, I will win 3/4 of my games on Kiriko, as someone who doesn't even play that much Kiriko. I know I get a bit mean on this point, but it drives me crazy. I feel like I'm being gaslit. Ever since my opinion on Kiriko first soured 2 seasons after a release in Season 3, I have been feeling like the entire community has been gaslighting me into thinking that Kiriko isn't as broken and terribly designed as she seems. And every single day, I only see more and more evidence that this character is actually stupidly easy and stupidly overpowered and not even hard to play. It's literally just that people choose to play her in the stupidest ways possible, where you get the least value. And the crazy part is they will literally play her in ways that are more difficult to get less reward. I don't even think these people who I'm complaining about are bad at Kiriko. I think they are good at Kiriko, but also have no idea what the hell they bring to the team and how they have to use their utility to actually win the game rather than just play for KD. So yeah, pick Kiriko if you want to carry. I'm not even kidding. Wait, quick story time actually before we finish this. I had a game while I was still going to climb to Legend. I eventually gave up on it just because it was taking forever. I did climb a bit. I managed to get to like High All-Star 4, but it took quite a while to get there. And I was like, I'm not getting to Legend before the end of the season. So I admit, I kind of gave up on going for Legend. But I had a game on Kiriko, man. And I'm telling you, I've never had a game where my entire team was trying to throw harder. I had a diva that managed to fly off the map multiple times in a single game. And I want to be clear, they were not booped off the map, they didn't get stunned and fall off the map, they didn't get tricked. Every single time, they literally just flew off the map and was like, oh, the ground's not here. Dies. So yeah, I had a diva that wasn't very helpful to the team and flew off the map on multiple occasions. We had a Mei that had basically 1 elim at most every single round and 5 deaths at least every single round, who also just so happened to make me die to Diva Bomb on 3 separate occasions, either by walling me in a room so that I couldn't escape the Diva Bomb, or by, and I struggle to believe this is an accident, but they promise it was, jumping and then hitting Ice Block when they're already behind cover from a Diva Bomb, so that the Ice Block pushes me out from behind cover and makes the bomb kill me. I mean... This was on top of a Mercy that would constantly fly into the enemy backline 1v5 to go for the stupidest reses, often at times where even if she got them off, it would actually stagger us and make it so that we couldn't recontest the point in time. There was literally a moment in one round where it was like, final point, Temple of Anubis, center of the point, we gotta defend it, and our diva died inside enemy spawn, and The D.Va has more than enough time to respawn and we can all fight together on point for the final battle. But what happens instead? Mercy flies alone 1v5 into the entire enemy backline to try and res the D.Va in the enemy spawn. Already stupid enough, but she somehow gets away with it, dies immediately afterwards, and now because she res D.Va inside enemy spawn, she can't get to point in time, and so now we lose. If she just waited for it to respawn, we could all contest point. But she actually not only fed, but then on purpose staggered us so that our tank couldn't be there for the final team fight. If she just let them die, they would have respawned on point. I need you to understand just how less than useless my entire team was this game. Thank God I was playing with my friend, because my friend was the only person on the team literally doing anything except for me. It was an actual 2v5, but I even hesitate to call it a 2v5, because those teammates were literally so much of a detriment. We probably would have been better if all three of them left the game, and it was actually a 2v5. It felt more like a 2v8, I'll tell you that much. So this game is a train wreck, right? This sounds ridiculous, right? I turned it into a reverse sweep. We went from being 3-0 to going 4-3 and winning. And is that because I'm cracked on Kiriko? No! It's because I could walk basically anywhere on the map I wanted, and I could disregard basically every rule of Overwatch. I have access to constant get-out-of-jail-free cards and invincibility frames on command on a character with unpredictable movement who can also 2-tap everyone in the game. What the hell are they gonna do? I just walk at them and sling kunais, and I don't even have to hit them all. I just have to hit 1 or 2, and they're dead immediately. I am not kidding. It got to the point where every team fight, I was killing a minimum of 4 of the 5 people on the enemy team. That's right. Ever since we started reverse sweeping from the 3-0 loss to the 4-3 victory, every single round, every single team fight, I would either kill 4 or kill 5. Most of them completely alone. And again, I'm not even a good Kiriko. I'm telling you, I really am not. I am average at best on Kiriko. The one thing I have is I know when you kunai and when you don't. And it's really not that complicated, but it just seems like the average Kiriko player cannot comprehend it. You kunai enemies you have information on. Enemies where you know where they're going so you can predict their movements and land your headshots. You kunai when no one else needs healing and someone needs to get active. And remember, you can get active basically however you like. You can go for the stupidest attack ever that's basically guaranteed to get you killed and then just hit a button and now you live. Congratulations. By the way, 7-second cooldown. Fair and balanced. One last thing I just got to throw in here about Kiriko while I'm ranting about this. And just one last thing while I'm on the Kiriko rant. Can I just say that Kiriko has like the worst set of powers in Stadium? And when I say the worst, I don't mean the weakest. If anything, it might be one of the strongest. But it's the strongest in the worst way possible. Kiriko actually has, like, no synergy in, like, any of her powers. Like, almost nothing. What she has instead is just a massive pile of good stuff. Like, her powers are still strong, because they're just strong. You don't have to use them intelligently. You don't have to put them in a particularly synergetic build. I mean, the build I use that I've been describing this whole time is literally just spam weapon power and take good stuff. That's the whole build. You take Suzu even though you don't take ability power, which means your Suzus don't get buffed. It's just Suzu is one of the most broken cooldowns in the game, and having 2 of them is insane. And again, I know I've said this before, but I will not stop saying it until it gets drilled into every Overwatch player's head on the entire planet. Suzu is literally stronger than most ultimates, even though it's only a 15-second cooldown. And I will stand by that till the day I die. It literally negates almost every ultimate in the game on a 15-second cooldown with very little skill check. So yeah, obviously Suzu's busted, even if you're taking no Suzu synergy. In fairness though, there is one bit of synergy in the build that I play, and that comes from one of the most unexpected areas. A power that I originally did not expect to be too good, that I've actually come around on and now think is crazy. And that is the power that makes it so that when you cleanse a debuff with Suzu, you get 5% ult charge immediately as a bonus. Okay, so again, Kitsune Rush is like the most broken ultimate in the entire game, and you cannot tell me otherwise. So a power you can use to farm Kitsune Rush faster is already a good start. But in fairness, only 5% and only if it cleanses a debuff might sound bad. But here's the kicker. First of all, debuffs count DOTs, and like basically every debuff from any item in Stadium. You're playing a flying character and someone shoots you with Aerial Distressor. Guess what? You can cleanse the Aerial Distressor DOT. You're against a Junker Queen? Yeah, good luck getting any wound value when you can Suzu it whenever you like and get 5% ult charge for every single wounded target, meaning every Suzu is giving you like an instant boost of like 10-15% ult charge because everyone's wounded versus Queen all the time. AP Ash, oh, they're not going to get a lot of value out of that fire, but what they are going to give you is a whole bunch of ult charge. You're going up against a Stinger Juno or a Moira that's throwing morbs that slow and anti-heal? Cleanse it right off, get more ult charge. You're up against a Reaper that's got the headshots anti-heal? Cleanse it right off, get more ult charge. Junkrat shoots you with Bango so you get the fire DOT? Cleanse it right off, more ult charge. And as if all this wasn't good enough, there's one last synergy up her sleeve. Nebula Conduit. Nebula Conduit makes it so that when you take damage, 15% of the damage you should have taken immediately instead gets dealt as a DOT that lasts 3 seconds, so that you can take some of the damage in the future rather than now. And guess what? Suzu can cleanse it. And not only can it cleanse it and make it so you never have to take the remaining 15% of that damage in the future, but it also means you get the heal bonus from cleansing the debuff, and you get the ult charge bonus. What this means is, if you're playing Kiriko and you have this power and you take Nebula Conduit, every single time you Suzu yourself, so long as you have taken damage any time in the last 3 seconds, you will get an instant ult charge boost. And remember, you can also take cooldown reductions, and again, you have double Suzu. Just, like, how? Like, how is this character not recognized as the most broken character in Stadium by literally the entire player base? Freya has got nothing on this. I don't care how good of Freya you are, a mid Kiriko can dumpster you. Oh boy. Alright, moving on. I just realized I got some of these in the wrong order. I don't know why that is. Well, anyway, I'll fix that now. Oh wait, I think it was supposed to be Juno before Kiriko. Whoops. Well, whatever, I did it this way now. Juno. Man. Okay, Juno is a weird one. Yep, Juno's going there. Okay, so, like, this is weird. Juno is popular, and Juno is fun. And so that means that it kind of creates the impression that Juno is good. And so you might be surprised to see me putting Juno this low when it comes to supports. Like, by support standards, this is low. I mean, it's probably not a surprise, considering Anna was my bottom pick, that this means that I think Juno is the second worst support in Stadium. And that can kind of seem crazy when I say it out loud. I mean, like, isn't the potential of this character really, really high? But I do think the best way to play Juno was not Torpedo Juno. I do think it was the Stinger build I made a video on. Something that I didn't realize was actually already a popular build just at the higher ranks. Apparently it just turned out I had arrived at what was the best way to play Juno completely on my own rather than by copying what top ranked players were doing, but apparently I'd copied what top ranked Juno players were doing, so hey, that's pretty cool, I guess. Anyway, yes, but the Stinger build was the best way to play Juno if you wanted to be serious about pushing Juno to her limits in Stadium. And it got nerfed pretty bad. Though, funnily enough, we call it the Stinger build, but I mentioned in the video that I made on it that it's kind of a collection of multiple smaller synergies, where the Stinger build is just the core synergy, but there's lots of side synergies. And the nerfs were mostly to the side synergies. But I also mentioned in the video on that build that the reason those side synergies are so important is because they cover the weaknesses of the Stinger build's core. The biggest one being the lack of ability to deal instant healing to people who need it. You need to use torpedoes to heal people, which are so slow and delayed that people usually die while you're locking onto them, and so they don't get the heals they need in time. But your primary fire heals so slowly, especially in the late game, especially because you're not taking weapon power, that you can't really heal very effectively with that either. So you end up never being able to heal on Juno, even if you can provide a lot of debuffs to the enemies and provide a lot of support to your team through other means, and that can be a real detriment to you. For that reason, you took a bit of speed synergy so you could take the overhealth on speed ring, so you could grant people instant overhealth to keep them alive, though that lost 25 overhealth in a recent nerf. Now, don't get me wrong, that does sting, but I would say that you'd still be fine, because you could still supplement instant heals where you needed it by relying on the other side synergy, where you would spam glide boost using blink boots to get it as frequently as possible, and every time you used it, you would trigger Mark of the Kitsune, allowing for an instant burst of ability-based healing whenever you shot someone with your weapon. And because it's ability-based, all the AP you'd be investing in would be amplifying the burst heals from Mark of the Kitsune from every single usage of blink boots. But then they nuked Blink Boots. Blink Boots went from a power that allowed you to hold 3 charges of Glide Boost and get those 3 charges back at triple speed at the cost of the Glide Boost becoming 4 times shorter, to a power that still makes your Glide Boosts 4 times shorter, but now only provides a 30% cooldown reduction rather than 65. That is a nuke of a nerf. At the very least, you still can have 3 charges, but I think it's safe to say the Blink Boots aspect of the build is kind of dead. And with that important aspect of the build dead, I feel like its late game is really lacking and its burst heals are really lacking as well. The best way to address this I've found post-nerf is to pivot into caring about weapon power as Juno, but just still take Stinger. Even though it deals ability-based damage, it can still anti-heal and slow, and that's the important part. Other than that, focus on actually dealing damage with your abilities and your weapons, and so you focus on weapon power, and that helps cover your low heals as well. And now that you're not taking Blink Boots anymore, you have room to take the headshot power. To be quite frank, while I still think this is better than Torpedo Juno, I did think this build was a massive fall-off from its previous quality though, to the point where Juno may have even gone in C. However, what saved her is they did do one last buff. One thing I didn't realise was that her headshot damage was actually pitiful with the power. I thought it was a 1.5 times boost, but it was actually 1.25 before a recent hotfix patch which buffed it back to 1.5 like I thought it was. Now that there's that significant buff to the increased healing and damage from headshotting on Juno, the headshot power is actually an okay pick. As a result, I do think the best way to play Stinger Juno now is to lean more into weapon power, just still take the Stinger package, but man, it is much worse than what we had before. And so I really do think Juno's in this awkward position now where she doesn't really have a competitive build. She's still popular because she's fun and she's easy to pick up, especially if you're picking her up with the Torpedo build. But she doesn't really have a build that actually keeps working and doing well when you actually get into difficult lobbies. I feel like she mostly just exists to be for fun right now, and her only competitive builds are a little janky and a lot of effort for not much more reward than you could get playing a much easier support. At the end of the day, though, in fairness, I've got to give some points. Juno has a lot of utility that no one else does. Stinger Juno is still strong for a reason. Being able to anti-heal and slow everyone you touch is terrifying. Speed Ring is, of course, still important no matter what. And, of course, Juno's unique kind of mobility is always going to have its moments. So Juno's still a B, but yeah, I think I've got to say, as much as it might sound weird to say out loud, I don't think Juno's in a great spot right now. I think she's one of the weakest supports. Next up is Mercy. Man, I'm going to feel so weird doing this one. You see, I thought Mercy was F tier at the start of Stadium. A big reason for that is I was really hoping that Stadium would give Mercy some more unique value, some utility that she didn't have before. Because, don't get me wrong, I know she has damage boost and she has res. But at least in the base game, res is rarely a big deal. A lot of the times it just staggers people and wastes time and doesn't really add a whole lot. It's best when just one person gets picked early and you can immediately reset the team fight back to a 5v5. But when things actually already have devolved into chaos and a lot of people are already dead, res is usually very low impact for something that's very risky as well, and gets easier and easier to punish in more and more skilled lobbies. And damage boost, of course, as everyone knows, is extremely underwhelming until you find that one DPS that's cracked with it and can hit breakpoints. Then it's OP, but only while you're pocketing that DPS, which just feels horrible. And to be honest, I kind of felt the same about her in Stadium. I was kind of worried, okay, I need to see. What are they going to give Mercy in Stadium so that you actually want to pick her and she's not a throw pick? And when I saw what they had to offer, I was not impressed. The best thing there seemed to be the Valk package, which in fairness, was actually surprisingly robust. I do think Valk Mercy is a very serious build and may even be the best way to play Mercy. But other than the Valk package, I was not really impressed. I mean, we got some unique utility, but it was also underwhelming. 20% lifesteal on people you beam is probably the best one. 10% damage reduction on characters only when they have 80% or more of their health remaining while they're being beamed. Are you, serious? I'm not even saying that's terrible, it's just man, we're really not making it easy to use this utility or sell it to people. And so, I didn't think Mercy was very good. However, I think I made a critical mistake. You see, in the normal game, I kind of run with the assumption that as Mercy, if you're not getting value off of damage boost or res, you should not be playing Mercy. The reason being that while you might think that Mercy is one of the best healers in the game, especially if you play at lower or middle ranks or you just play casually, Mercy is actually not a great healer. Not technically. She gets big numbers because she is one of the only supports whose healing source is something completely infinite, so to speak. You don't have to aim it, you don't have to reload it, you don't have to spend any kind of resource, you don't have to use a cooldown, it's not temporary, it's always there. And because it's always there, and you don't even have to aim it, you don't even have to reload it, you can just keep holding it. And that means over the course of a long game, yeah, you farm a lot of heals on Mercy. But do you actually save a lot of people's lives as Mercy using that healing? The answer is actually probably no, considering your healing output, despite it being Mercy, is one of the lowest healing outputs in the entire support role. I know some of you are going to have your brains broken by this, but if you didn't know, Brig literally heals faster than Mercy. I'm not kidding. And that's without Inspire. A single Brig heal pack heals more health per second than Mercy's beam does. So while Mercy farms big healing numbers just because her healing is free and easy and with no cost, in terms of her actual ability to provide people burst healing when they need it so they don't die, she is awful. And the only argument I could think to play Mercy as a heal bot and have it not be a throw is if you're using Mercy's unique mobility to provide healing in situations where no one else could because they would just be dead if they tried to heal you there. But not only can Moira cover most of those situations for you, but on top of that, I'm going to be real with you, I think in the vast majority of cases, even though I don't recommend this either, if you really do just want to be a heal bot that doesn't actually impact the game, Lifeweaver does it better, I'm gonna be real with you. Again, I'm not saying you should just heal bot on Lifeweaver either, but if you're gonna heal bot, I think you should be on Lifeweaver, not Mercy. Especially because while both of their ultimates are a little underwhelming, at least Tree of Life is a little better than Valkyr's. But this doesn't really translate to Stadium. In Stadium, of course, you can amplify your healing really, really powerfully, especially because attack speed and weapon power both stack multiplicatively, meaning when you mix them both together, you get more efficient stat boosts and extremely fast heals on your staff. This is where it all comes around for Mercy. For as many problems as she has, she actually is kind of the queen of healing in Stadium. And that's all while also being extremely survivable and tanky if you build her the right way. Surprisingly so. That's because of the fact her Guardian Angel has a 1.5 second cooldown, the shortest cooldown you can get on an ability that hasn't been modified in all of Stadium. That means any ability that grants you any kind of survivability every time you use a cooldown also is going to apply to Guardian Angel. So Lumerico Fusion Drive, an item that gives you 50 armor and makes you regenerate 50 armor if you've lost it every single time you use an ability, will trigger every Guardian Angel. Meaning effectively, when you buy Lumerico Fusion Drive with Mercy and spam Guardian Angel, you are quite literally regenerating 50 armor a second just for existing at all times. Combine that with Lindholm exhaust ports and you can add an extra 25 overhealth per Guardian Angel instantly on command to that list. And a funny thing is as well, that when you start becoming so tanky on Mercy that you can literally just sit in like an up-close brawl at point-blank range and actually just not die because you're regenerating health faster than the enemies can damage you. When you finally get to that point on Mercy, you start becoming so tanky that you can actually just res people right in front of the enemies and they just actually can't stop you. And that makes res more useful. There's a lot of situations where usually if you tried to res someone, you would just die every single time, and it'd be dumb to even go for it. But there are so many dumb reses you should literally never be able to get away with. You can get away with now on Mercy in Stadium if you build her tanky enough. Now, I don't recommend doing that if the person who gets res is just going to die immediately again because of where you res them, but if you want to go for really stupid reses where both of you should really die for going for them, then you just need to take the power that grants overhealth to you and the person you res. I know it sounds dumb, but I'm telling you, if you become tanky Mercy and then you start going for reses inside the enemy backline, even if you're literally 1v5, you will start not only getting away with the reses, but both you and the person you res will usually survive if you just have all that overhealth from the power. So yeah, I'll admit, I'm a little torn whether Tank Mercy or Valk Mercy is the correct way to play Mercy. They're both very strong, and I'm definitely not the Mercy main to ask. But I definitely have come around on Mercy. I think Mercy is a lot better right now in Stadium than I gave her credit for initially. Though of course, I can't let it go. She, as always, still has the issue of not really being able to solo carry all that much. A lot of the times you're along for the ride, and you can only lead the horse to water. If they don't drink, you just lose. That being said, I think she's done enough to earn herself a high B spot. Speaking of doing supports out of order, I've just realised Lucio was supposed to be before Mercy. God damn it, man. I swear I'm not doing this on purpose. Okay. Lucio. I don't like doing this because it's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm just going to say this. Lucio is spiky as hell. I think if you just play the typical heal-bot Lucio build that most people play, he's okay. He's not the best, he's not the worst. In the right team comp, he's really good, but it has to be the right team comp. And when it isn't, and that's usually out of your control, yeah, he's just like, okay. But obviously, if he was just okay, I would not put him in A. I think if you are a good Reddit Lucio, Lucio is the most broken character in Stadium. The only thing is you really got to be a good Reddit Lucio, and if you fall even just a little short of hitting the mark, then you get punished really hard. But if you have like the consistency on Lucio to schmoove like that and hit your shots at the same time, you are a demon on Lucio. You ought to be feared by the entire lobby. I think with your insane mobility and the ability to take so much bonus damage in Stadium, I actually think that when it comes to like the peak of how deadly a character can be, I think Lucio, when built correctly and played correctly, is more deadly than anyone else in this game. For as broken as I said Kiriko is, I even think if you're really that cracked on Lucio, you are stronger than Kiriko is. I think you can dumpster Freya. I think you can dumpster tanks. I think you can dumpster Cass. I think you can dumpster Reaper. I think you can dumpster Kiriko if you're a good Reddit Lucio. And so you might be wondering, why the hell is Lucio not in S Plus with Kiriko then? You gotta be really good, man. Like, you don't have to be good at Kiri to just dominate on her. It's so much easier on Kiri. Whereas on Lucio, it's so strict. Like, you get a nice baseline value if you play normal heal bot Lucio, but if you actually decide to go for weapon power and Reddit Lucio, you kind of gotta go all in, and if you do anything but perfect, then it really hits you back hard. I really learned the hard way you can't 50-50 this. Initially, I really had a lot of faith that the Lucio power that allowed you to heal people for 30% of the damage you deal, so long as they're in your crossfade, was going to be a great way to strike the balance between being a Reddit Lucio and actually supporting my team. That if I just sped people around while shooting tank or something like that to farm damage, that would not only help me heal people, but then I could still be aggressive while healing people, instead of just heal botting and being a fly on the wall. But that's just the thing. I found that oftentimes the tanks would have enough mitigation abilities that I wouldn't consistently be able to get up my lifesteal, so I wouldn't be providing enough healing. I could provide more healing if I actually dove backline, and I had the mobility to do that, but of course no one's going to be there if I dive backline. Even if I try and get my teammates to come with me, a lot of the times with randoms, they're just not going to do it. You're going to be alone, and so you're going to be landing all these hits, but not actually providing any healing. And so sure enough, I very quickly realized, wow, this just does not work. This is terrible. I keep trying to be a good Lucio that both dives the backline, but also supports my team, but I feel like my team never works with me, and I feel like even when I work with my team, I'm nowhere near as effective as I could be if I just heal botted, even though then I would have less impact on the game. I got the best results on Lucio by just going, okay, enough being scared, enough thinking, oh, I've got to be a certain amount of a team player, just go balls to the wall. Just go all in. Just take weapon power. Just take powers that help you kill. Just jump in the back. Don't even worry about speeding people. Don't even worry about healing people. Just Reddit Lucio. And I'm not going to lie, when I first started doing that, I'm like, I'm going to throw so hard this game, but I just need to find out, like, do I get rewarded for this? I really did not believe that Reddit Lucioing that hard. I thought that was just going to be a meme. I thought that was going to be like, okay, yeah, that's the fantasy that you can like get 0 heals on Lucio and still be impactful, but let's be real, you probably actually do have to come back and help your team at some point. But no. The one time I've experienced success on Lucio that hasn't just been me heal-botting a game I probably would already have won anyway, even if I wasn't doing particularly well. The only times I ever felt like I took a losing game as Lucio and turned it into a winning one through my own skill alone are games in which I just said, f*** it. I don't care if I'm going to be alone. I don't care if no one else is going to push. I'm going in the back line and I am not coming back until I have a kill. And I'm saying this as someone who is okay at Lucio, but I'm definitely not a Reddit Lucio. I obviously did not have crazy success with Lucio, but I also didn't exactly experience constant failure. I had some successes, it was just volatile. There'd be games where I'm going crazy and I'm running the entire lobby, and games where I'll get 1 or 2 pop-off kills, but like most of the game I'm kinda just cosmetic. I'm not consistent on Lucio, so I'm gonna have that issue, but I am telling you, if you're consistent on Lucio and know how to jump in that backline as Lucio, and basically just play as a dive DPS rather than a support, you actually might be the single most terrifying force in Stadium if you can pull it off. But you see how this makes it a tough one? Because there's like 2 different alternate realities here. There's the god tier Reddit Lucio who's in S plus tier, and there's the healbot Lucio that helps his team but doesn't really do much else that's in C tier. And it's like, man, I hate pulling a cheap one like this. But I gotta say A tier, I just gotta call it in the middle. Like, if I felt it was more reasonable to ask people to simply be good enough, then I would put them in S+. But I feel the level at which you have to be consistently good at Lucio to be able to be that impactful is something only a select few players can do. But the select few players who can run any lobby they want. Next up is Moira. One of the characters I've been using to climb, so she goes in S-. Actually, you know what? For the sake of not making the tier list kind of cluttered, I initially decided that I wasn't going to have an S+, an S-, and then just a normal S. But... I mean, you're not going to complain about having more detail in the list, are you? That's the split, I think. Again, everyone in the top is pretty damn close. Moira is close to the top of the pack here, and that's because of a few reasons. One of which actually being a reason why she sucks in the base game, but is good in Stadium. That being, she's a massive stat padder. She can easily farm tons of damage and healing without actually having a lot of impact on the game. And don't get me wrong, obviously it's better if you're getting impact on the game, but the fact that it's just so easy for her to just farm stats means it's also so easy for her to farm credits. You just kind of get to be rich for free when you play Moira. You don't even have to try, and you'll make more money than anyone else in the lobby. And unlike AP Ashe, who can get rich, but then doesn't really have much they can do with all that money that actually changes their playstyle and fixes the issues with it, Moira actually can become a demon with the money that she makes. I mean, Moira's already just well positioned in general for Stadium. Even though she's infamous for not healing, that's just because of the range of her healing. In terms of actual healing output, she has the highest AoE heals in the entire game. So she's got huge AoE healing output that's good for pocketing tanks and good for close quarters fights on point, which you're going to have a lot of in Stadium, and you're going to be farming credits by doing that. At the same time, she's also got way more mobility than most characters, which again is a big deal in Stadium. And the downside is that she trades lethality for that. But like I said, you can just invest in weapon power to fix that. She also has inherent lifesteal, which just like with Reaper is a massive upside for her, because when you have lifesteal, it encourages you to get more active, and when you get more active, you farm more stats, both damage and healing, and when you get both more damage and healing, you get more money, which means you just infinitely get stronger and gain momentum. Now there's two major ways to play Moira, and honestly, both of them are pretty good, although I do have an opinion on which one is just a little better. There is, of course, Suck Moira and Morb Moira, and of course most people play with Morbs, because they're fun. I mean, I'll be clear here, Morbs are not weak. You can still get a lot of damage and healing with them by investing in ability power. They're a great ranged option when Moira can sometimes lack range, although her mobility usually will make up for that. There are some situations where Morbs can get kills that Grasp just couldn't. But most importantly, you can use Liquid Nitrogen and Cyber Venom, just like with Juno's Stinger build, to make it so that all your Morbs, the second they tap someone, anti-heal and slow them, which is a pretty big deal actually. Some people even go as far as to combo this with the multi-ball power, an extremely popular Moira power that triples the amount of Morbs you have, but reduces the effectiveness of each one by 85%. The fact that the orbs are so much more spread out makes them basically inescapable. It basically means every time you throw out a damage Morb, the entire enemy team gets slowed and anti-healed, and there's basically nothing they can do about it. But all that said, what's my problem with the Morb build? Well, besides the fact that you can get caught without your Morbs, it's not the longest cooldown, but it is long enough and something you're very reliant on, to the point at which I would say there is a concern you could get caught in a moment where you can't do much just because you don't have your Morbs up. But beyond that, I'd say there's one other bigger issue. You know how I said that multi-ball is the most popular Morb power? Have you actually paid attention to what it says? It sucks. Again, as a reminder, while it triples the amount of Morb you throw, it makes it so that each Morb has 85% reduced effectiveness. That means you just sacrificed 55% of your damage and healing just to get more Morbs. The DPS loss and the heals per second loss from taking this power is absolutely brutal, and it is absolutely not worth it in basically every situation. The only reason you would use it is so that you can more consistently anti-heal and slow everyone, but you'll lose basically all your damage in doing so. You see, this is the thing. I understand why a lot of people gravitate towards the Morb build, but I actually don't think it's better because of something unintuitive. While Moira has a lot of powers that summon Morbs, and most of them aren't bad, there's not a lot of ones that are really like, wow, that one's good. There's lots of powers that are good, but there's not a lot of powers that are good. And while you might wonder whether it's more valuable to have a few really, really strong powers or lots of options for decent powers, and it might sound like the decent one would have some merit, you gotta remember, you can only pick 4 powers in a game, and honestly, you play more than half the game with only 2. It's not even possible to use all the morb powers you probably want to use, so it's actually not worth it to go with morbs if the powers aren't as impactful, even if there are more to choose from. That's a big reason why I prefer the Suck build, because while the Suck build does have less options, the good options it has are so good that I think they blow everything else out of the water. The one where your Suck can increase the damage of allies I don't think is very good. And the one where you can headshot has a synergy that can make it good, but I think on its own, it's sort of mixed. Sometimes very good in the right situations, usually a little underwhelming. But for one, you can make the headshot one good by taking the anti-heal headshot item, which does work in tandem with this power. That way you can anti-heal everyone you suck, just like you could have anti-healed everyone you orbed. But it gets better. The real star of the attraction here is Chain Grasp. You don't understand how broken Chain Grasp is. You actually don't. I underestimated this power because I read something into it that was never there in the first place. I am so used to any kind of chain attack ability in Stadium, making the chains do reduced damage compared to the original to balance out the power of the ability, that I just assumed it did that for this ability, without ever checking to see that no, it doesn't. When you get Chain Grasp to latch onto 3 people at once, all 3 people receive 100% of the original damage. So essentially what this means is when you throw a morb, Chain Grasp gives you 3 seconds of your grasp being able to do triple damage, and by the way, that also means triple self-heal from the lifesteal, just so long as the enemies are grouped up. And by the way, even if you can't get a kill with triple damage grasp with triple self-heal, you still are farming credits like crazy by doing that, which will make you so rich you'll get to the point where your grasp can destroy tanks. Not to mention, I'm telling you, in the late game, it gets to the point where when you play Moira, there have been moments where I can briefly become the tank. Like, if my tank needs to sit it out for a second, but we want to hold a spot, sometimes I will literally just sit there, 1v5 in front of a whole group of enemies, throw out a morb, and just hold grasp, and let them shoot me. And I will actually self-heal from all the damage I'm doing from the chain grasp, faster than a full team of 5 can actually damage me. And that is just purely through the power of triple damage plus lifesteal on Moira. And that is so good for farming credits and for holding space and taking resources from the enemies. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, when you go weapon power Moira and go with the Suck, you can also get more of a damage boost because you can stack the weapon power multiplicatively with your attack speed to get a higher damage boost than you could off of ability power alone. But there is one downside to taking this path, and that is that you don't buff Coalescence. And so eventually Coalescence actually becomes worse than your normal weapon. But that's actually kind of a good thing, because it means that now you can buy Vanadium Injection to get a 10% boost to basically every stat in the game for an extremely cheap cost, plus an extra 100 health as a bonus. I mean, you're never going to use Coalescence anyway, so you may as well take the stupidly cost-efficient item that rewards you for not using your ultimate. Yeah, Moira's just the full package. She has literally everything you want in a Stadium character, and the only reason she isn't S+, is 1, Kiriko's on another f***ing planet in terms of strength, and 2, in fairness, a lot of the times, if you want to solo carry on Moira, you do kind of have to just say, f*** the rest of my team, unless they get active. And most people in Stadium are a bit apprehensive about getting active. It sucks, but it's how people are. So I'll sometimes have games on Moira where, like, I'll get lots of kills, I'll get a lot done, and I'll even get a lot of healing done. It's not like I'm not healing, but I'll still be alone all game, and we'll still lose. And it's like, well, damn, I mean, I did a lot, but we still lost. That kind of feels bad. And I don't feel I get that so much on Kiriko, because you can always be in the right place at the right time just by using Swift Step. But needless to say, Moira still is extremely strong in Stadium. She's everything you want. Massive AoE heals that are really good in brawly teamfights. Also really good for farming credits. Lifesteal, I already mentioned why that's good in Stadium. Mobility already in the base kit, so you don't have to worry about investing more heavily into it with items. The main thing you want in the character's base kit is more damage, which is what Stadium gives you in spades. The ability to easily flank and isolate people and pick them off in 1v1s, and the ability to punish people for grouping up with Chain Grasp. So that there's basically no way to counterplay the Moira. You either group up and let her get triple damage and farm tons of credits and probably kill you anyway, or you split up and definitely die to her in a 1v1. She's just actually kind of insane. But either way, that brings us to the final ranking for this list, and that will of course be Zenyatta, who I'm going to put just below Moira, but he's still very, very good. I initially thought that Zenyatta was a little better, but I have had a little bit more trouble with the fact that the best way to play Zenyatta, in my opinion, is AP Zenyatta. And that does mean that while you're very good at enabling your team, being unkillable and providing a ton of heals, you also don't have a lot of individual impact, and so if your team doesn't carry their own weight, you can help them a bit if they're struggling, but if it's not like they're struggling, it's like actually they're just doing nothing. Like, it's not like, oh, they're having a bit of a tough game. It's like, oh, you actually just haven't done anything. You are just cosmetic. When you have those kind of teammates, you don't really have much ability to solo carry on Zen unless you go all in on DPS, but I don't think DPS Zen is the way to play him. I think that that's very, very, very risky. And sure, you may as well Hail Mary and do it in a team where, like, literally you've got no other alternative, but you really don't want to do it if you can avoid it. I would talk more about Zen, but I'm going to be honest, I already made a video deeply covering my AP Zen build that I was using to climb at least until some of the higher ranks where I swear, like, you'd think when you get to the higher ranks you get better teammates, but I swear when I got to the higher ranks, instead what I got was I got every single thrower in the universe. Like, I actually feel like I was Sisyphus carrying these games. I know I'm egoing, you can't stop me, I'm gonna ego. I genuinely am convinced the matchmaker was just like, alright, you've won enough games, time to give you every thrower that we've had in the entire, like, month. So yeah, I couldn't keep running AP Zen with that. But yeah, because I've already made a video on the build that I consider to be the best Zen build. And I've already yapped a long while on that in that video, and obviously this video is already getting on a little bit. I think I'm going to keep this one pretty short. I even explained in that video why I think Zen is broken in a stadium format. I actually kind of almost slightly re-explained it in this video, the whole idea that, like, he's supposed to be weak because he's a glass cannon, but he's not even a glass cannon because in stadium supports are actually unkillable. And funnily enough, of all the supports, Zenyatta is ironically probably the most, like, unkillable support in the entire game. Well, except maybe Kiriko, but even then, Kiriko mostly is only more unkillable when she completely leaves the fight. If you're talking staying in the fight and still being unkillable, it's Zen. You just provide such an enormous amount of passive value just for existing, while also being almost impossible to actually kill with just about any character except Freya. Well, Freya and Kiriko, because, like, Kiriko. But yeah, I gotta at least give him S, even if I do think he struggles to carry when you play the AP build. Actually, you know what? Just because Reaper has a lot more carry potential, I'll shift this around a little bit. I think Reaper goes a slightly higher position. And that completes my Stadium tier list. As I say, if you'd like more details on the Zen placement, you can just watch my GG Easy AP Zen build video. But either way, that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.